In my past life, the younger sister I'd raised, practically spoon-feeding her since she was a baby, got pregnant during her summer job. She was just a year away from the all-important college entrance exams. I was furious, disappointed, but mostly heartbroken. I took time off work to be with her through the abortion, nursing her back to health, brewing every imaginable tonic to restore her strength. After she was discharged, I even quit my long-held job to help her prepare for the exams, ensuring she had the best possible chance. My efforts paid off. She achieved excellent scores and got into her dream university. After graduation, she landed a coveted position at a Fortune 500 company. The day she was promoted to manager, she cooked a magnificent feast to thank me for my support. She handed me a glass of red wine, her eyes shining with what I thought was gratitude. I drank it down without a second thought. Then the world exploded in pain. As darkness closed in, her face swam above me, contorted with venomous triumph. "If you hadn't forced me to have that abortion," she hissed, "I would be marrying Lucas Mitchell today. You stole my chance at love." It turned out she'd always blamed me, convinced I'd robbed her of her true love. Now, reborn, I watched as she once again daydreamed about having that child, about a blissful future with her online soulmate. This time, I didn't scold her. I simply smiled. Chapter 1. The wine seared a path down my throat, a burning agony that erupted in my stomach. It felt like a million ants were gnawing at my insides. I collapsed, every twitch sending waves of excruciating pain through me. My throat constricted, and a metallic tang of blood filled my mouth. I stared at Hannah Bailey, the sister I had raised, the child I had nurtured and protected. Why? I choked out, the words laced with disbelief. Why poison me? Hannah and I had met in an orphanage. 7 years her senior, I became her protector, her family. At 16, I started working, determined to provide for us. As soon as I could, I took Hannah out of that place, eager to build a better life for her. My lack of education meant dead-end jobs and constant struggles, a fate I desperately wanted to spare Hannah. I poured every penny I earned into her education, tutoring, and anything that would give her a brighter future. I lived on scraps, happily sacrificing my own comfort for hers. We had been each other's lifeline, sharing a bond deeper than blood. Just an hour ago, I had been so happy, believing our hardships were finally behind us. My sister, who rarely cooked, had prepared a feast of my favorite dishes, even ordering a cake from my favorite bakery. Why? I repeated, the question a desperate plea for understanding. Hannah's response was a chilling laugh, her eyes filled with contempt. Sister dear, she sneered, Lucas got married today. If you hadn't forced me to get rid of our baby, he would be marrying me. He said he only loved me. It's all your fault. Pain clouded my vision, but her words pierced through the haze. The abortion. Hannah had been about to start her senior year, a crucial time for her studies. She'd insisted on a summer job against my advice. The job was a lie, a cover for a secret romance. She'd gotten pregnant. Terrified, she'd come to me. I had been furious, disappointed, and scared for her. I made the decision for her, an abortion, and an end to the relationship. The boy, focused on fleeting pleasure, clearly wasn't worth the consequences. The scandal would have ruined her future, her chances at a good university. The baby couldn't stay. I'd covered for her, told the school she was sick, and taken care of everything. And now, this. This was her gratitude. Poison. Murder. Rage warred with the agonizing pain. I wanted to scream, to curse her, but my body wouldn't cooperate. I could only glare, my eyes burning with hatred. All those years of sacrifice, of scrimping and saving, of putting her needs before my own. I had nurtured a viper. The pain intensified, my body convulsing. The metallic taste of blood grew stronger, more blood spilling from my lips. As darkness finally claimed me, the overwhelming feeling wasn't pain, but a crushing, bitter regret. Chapter 2. My eyes flew open. The phantom pain lingered, a chilling echo of what had been. I instinctively touched my lips, expecting blood, but there was nothing. I swallowed, the metallic tang gone. Sister, are you all right? Hannah's familiar voice snapped me back to reality. She stood before me in her school uniform. My eyes widened. This was impossible. Had I been reborn? Sister, don't be mad. I didn't mean to keep it from you. I know I messed up. What am I going to do? Her voice trembled, close to tears. It hit me then. This was the day Hannah had come to me, pregnant and terrified. She mistook my shocked expression for anger at the news. Looking at her, a surge of hatred washed over me. I wanted to strangle her, to make her pay. But I couldn't. Murder wasn't the answer. This time, things would be different. I would live for myself, free from her toxic grasp. Suppressing the rage, I forced myself to adopt the familiar mask of concerned older sister. Hannah, I sighed, my voice laced with carefully crafted disappointment. What happened? Seeing my familiar expression, the one that signaled love and support, she crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed everything. Hannah was brilliant, a natural scholar. She had aced her middle school exams and earned a place at the city's most prestigious high school. Driven and resilient, she poured all her energy into her studies. But being an orphan made her a target. She was bullied relentlessly, a fact that had led to more than one heated confrontation between me and the school administration. That same vulnerability, that deep-seated need for love and acceptance, had made her easy prey for someone like Lucas. Lucas was the youngest son of a wealthy family. He was at the bottom of his class, coasting through school on his family's money and influence. He openly defied teachers, secure in the knowledge that his family's wealth shielded him from any real consequences. He didn't care about academics, he didn't need to. People like him had countless paths laid out before them, regardless of grades or diplomas. Their paths had crossed at the water fountain. Hannah, as usual, had been pushed aside by other students eager to fill their bottles. Lucas had intervened, chastising the bullies and earning Hannah's gratitude. They started talking, and Lucas, captivated by her resilience and intelligence, began his pursuit. I should have seen the signs. 9 out of 10 sentences out of Hannah's mouth revolved around Lucas. I had tried to talk to her, reminding her of the importance of her upcoming college entrance exams, urging her not to let distractions derail her future. Romance can wait, I'd told her. Don't jeopardize everything for a boy. She had laughed, assuring me she knew what she was doing, promising me it wouldn't affect her studies. She insisted she was simply grateful for his kindness. I had believed her. I trusted her dedication to her studies. I had been so naive. She had sworn she only felt gratitude towards him, then turned around and accepted his confession, diving headfirst into a whirlwind romance. Secret lunches in secluded corners of the school, whispered conversations in the dark after evening study sessions, weekend library trips that were actually dates, sneaking out at night under the guise of taking out the trash, and now, against my explicit objections, a summer job at Lucas's family's hotel. A summer job that had resulted in a pregnancy. Chapter 3. Sister, what should I do? This is the symbol of my love with Lucas, a tiny life, Hannah sobbed, gently cradling her stomach. In my past life, my immediate reaction had been to argue with her, painting a stark picture of the hardships she would face as a young, unwed mother. I had spent hours persuading her to have an abortion, then arranged everything, taking time off work to be with her through the procedure. Afterwards, she had been devastated, so I extended my leave, staying home to care for her, both physically and emotionally. I'd spent a small fortune on tonics and supplements, trying to restore her health, constantly reassuring her, trying to make her smile again. I shielded her from the school, protecting her from gossip and judgment. I had loved her like a sister, cared for her like a mother. I hadn't expected gratitude, just the quiet comfort of knowing we were in this together, supporting each other through life's challenges. I never could have imagined she would harbor such resentment, such venomous hatred. The memories made my breath catch in my throat. Hannah, seeing my silence, assumed I hadn't heard her and repeated her plea for guidance. I took a deep breath, composing myself. Hannah, I said, my voice carefully neutral, you're almost an adult. You need to make your own decisions. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. I wouldn't make that mistake again. I'd heard people say that interfering in someone's life meant taking on their karma, their burdens. I hadn't believed it then. I did now. As I lay dying, Hannah's venomous words had echoed in my ears. I, the one who had cared for her, had become the villain, the one who had forced her hand, robbing her of her true love. I realized then that she would always find someone else to blame for her misfortunes, never taking responsibility for her own choices. If I persuaded her to keep the baby, and her life became difficult, she would undoubtedly turn on me again, finding some twisted way to make me suffer. I refused to be her scapegoat again. This time I would watch. I would see if keeping the baby truly led to the fairy tale life she envisioned. 4. Hannah hesitated, clearly torn. She muttered to herself, listing the downsides of keeping the baby, the social stigma of teenage pregnancy, the potential disruption to her education, the difficulty of finding a job with only a high school diploma, the sheer impossibility of supporting a child on her own. I listened, a cold smile playing on my lips. She knew that keeping the baby was a terrible idea. She just wanted someone else to make the decision for her, someone to shoulder the blame if things went wrong. She wanted to play the victim, the helpless pawn in a game she didn't control. Hearing her list the disadvantages, a flicker of fear ran through me. What if she actually came to her senses and decided on an abortion? I desperately wanted to see how this played out, to witness the consequences of her choice. So, subtly, carefully, I nudged her in the other direction. "Have you told anyone else?" I asked. "Does Lucas know?" Hannah's head drooped. "Sister, I haven't told him yet. I'm scared." I fought back the urge to roll my eyes. In my past life, I hadn't even considered letting Hannah tell Lucas. The fewer people who knew, the better. But now. "You're both practically adults," I said, my voice earnest. "He deserves to know. He's the father. You need to talk to him, decide together what to do." I looked at her intently, my expression a carefully constructed mask of concern. Then, feigning a light-hearted tone, I added, "He loves you, doesn't he? He always defends you at school. And his family is wealthy. They can certainly afford a child. Besides," I continued, my voice laced with just the right amount of playful teasing, "would he really let you suffer through an abortion?" I watched her from the corner of my eye as I spoke. Her expression shifted, her eyes brightening with a flicker of hope, a vision of a blissful future with Lucas. Inwardly, I exulted, but my face remained a picture of calm support. "Yes, keep the baby. Keep the baby, Hannah." I wanted to see how this life, free from my interference, would unfold. Would it be the fairy tale you imagined? Hannah had called Lucas the light in her dark life, the beacon of hope that had pulled her from despair. And me? Years of unwavering devotion, of tireless sacrifice, had been taken for granted, dismissed as an obligation. And for what? To be poisoned, betrayed, left to die in agony. How ironic. I continued to subtly guide her, feeding her fantasies of a life with Lucas, fanning the flames of her romantic delusions. I needed her to be absolutely certain, utterly convinced that keeping the baby was the right decision. This time, there would be no one to blame but herself. 5. Back then, Hannah would constantly regale me with stories of her and Lucas, their sweet moments together. I naively believed they were experiencing the quintessential high school romance, the kind you see in movies. But beneath the surface, woven into her narratives, was another, less innocent thread: prestige. Being with Lucas was status. Hannah, despite having me, was still an orphan. Middle school and high school are breeding grounds for gossip, and Hannah's background, coupled with her quiet nature, made her a target. Lucas, popular and desired by many girls, had chosen her. For someone as insecure as Hannah, it was a massive ego boost. And Lucas, being the son of a wealthy family, showered her with gifts and attention, fueling her vanity. Once you've tasted the sweet nectar of privilege, it's hard to let go, especially for someone like Hannah, who reveled in the comforts it afforded. Though she constantly proclaimed their love, her deep-seated fear was that Lucas would leave her, that the life she now enjoyed would vanish, leaving her the laughingstock of the school. The baby, she realized, was a lifeline, a way to bind him to her. Perhaps before, the thought of using a child to trap a man hadn't fully formed in her mind. But my carefully planted seeds were now taking root, blossoming into a dangerous obsession. 6. Sister, I've decided. I'm keeping the baby. It's the symbol of our love, Hannah declared, a dreamy expression on her face as she gently caressed her stomach. Lucas loves me so much. He'll be thrilled when he finds out. We'll be a happy family. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. She was so naive, so utterly untouched by the harsh realities of the world. She genuinely believed that this baby, coupled with Lucas's empty promises of love, would secure her a place as the cherished daughter-in-law of a wealthy family. Perhaps I had sheltered her too much, shielded her from the complexities and cruelties of life. At 17, how could she possibly understand the intricate dance of power and privilege? Sister, I'm going to see Lucas. I need to tell him the good news. With that, she practically skipped out the door, eager to share her joyful announcement. I watched her go, a strange sense of anticipation bubbling inside me. I couldn't wait to see the expression on the playboy's face when he heard the news. Would he be able to maintain his facade of love when confronted with the very real consequences of his careless actions? Because yes, the true love Hannah clung to so desperately was nothing but a carefully crafted illusion. I knew this firsthand. In my past life, while Hannah was recovering from the abortion, I had gone to the school to inform her teachers of her absence. I'd stumbled upon Lucas in the break room, surrounded by his friends, laughing and joking. The memory of Hannah, pale and vulnerable in that hospital bed, fueled my anger. I had wanted to confront him, to demand answers. As I approached, I overheard their conversation. They were congratulating him on bagging the smart, studious Hannah. Lucas, with a smirk and a glint of amusement in his eyes, had dismissed her as an easy conquest, a lonely girl desperate for affection. He'd bragged about how easily she'd fallen for his feigned devotion, then proceeded to crudely critique her physical responsiveness, boasting about how he would train her in bed. His friends had roared with laughter. Someone had asked if he'd used protection. Where's the fun in that, he'd quipped. Chapter 7. Overcome with rage, I stormed into the break room, ignoring the startled gasps, grabbed Lucas by the shirt, and dragged him outside. I slapped him hard across the face, the sound echoing in the air, and called him a monster. Back at the hospital, I wrestled with the decision of whether or not to tell Hannah the truth. Seeing her so frail and vulnerable, I couldn't bring myself to add to her pain. I chose to keep silent. When she returned to school, she never mentioned Lucas again. I assumed she had moved on, so I didn't bring him up, wanting to spare her further heartache. It wasn't until her venomous tirade as I lay dying that I learned the full extent of her deception. She accused me of forcing her to abort their loved child, of driving Lucas away. It turned out that, despite her silence, she had told him about the pregnancy. He, in turn, had used it as an excuse to break up with her, claiming she hadn't consulted him about the abortion, that she didn't value their relationship. He had lied, telling her that I had publicly humiliated him at school, slapping him in front of everyone and warning him to stay away from her. From that moment on, she had harbored a deep resentment towards me, convinced that I had sabotaged her happiness, destroyed her chance at a life with Lucas. But he had already discarded her, and I was her sole provider. She couldn't afford to alienate me. So she hid her hatred, nurturing it in secret until it finally erupted, fueled by the news of Lucas's marriage, culminating in my agonizing death. I had been so utterly blind, so tragically foolish to nurture such a viper in my bosom. Now, I watched, waited, eager to witness the fallout, to see the look on Lucas's face when he learned he was about to become a father. 7. Hannah didn't return for hours. I wasn't worried. I cooked dinner for myself, enjoying the quiet solitude. I still had my job, my hard-earned career. In my past life, I had resigned without a second thought, my mind consumed with Hannah's well-being, determined to ensure she didn't fall behind in her studies. My boss had tried to dissuade me, reminding me of my years of service, the value I brought to the company. But I had refused, blinded by my misguided sense of duty. I had drained my savings supporting Hannah through that year, leaving me penniless by the time she graduated high school. I had tried to return to my old job, but a year's absence had left me behind. The company had moved on. Desperate to fund Hannah's college education, I had been forced to take on menial, backbreaking labor. This time, I was free. I still had my job, my weekends, my life. I wasn't toiling away, exhausted and broken. It was a glorious feeling. When Hannah finally returned, her mood was somber. I was on an important call with a client and barely acknowledged her. After I hung up, she tearfully recounted her conversation with Lucas. He doesn't want the baby," she sobbed. "He said it would ruin my chances of getting into college. He wants me to have an abortion." Her eyes were red and swollen, her voice thick with despair. "He said it's for my own good," she added, still trying to justify his actions. My patience wore thin. If he truly loved her, would he put her through this? Did he not understand the devastating impact this would have on a young girl's reputation? I masked my annoyance with a veil of concern. "He has a point," I said gently. "Think it through, Hannah. If you decide to have an abortion, I'll take time off work to be with you." "Don't think it through," I silently pleaded. "Don't you dare change your mind." The next day, Hannah's pregnancy became public knowledge. She had fainted during morning exercises and been taken to the school nurse, where her condition was discovered. The news spread like wildfire. The school went into damage control mode, terrified of the scandal. An emergency assembly was called, students were warned against gossiping, and online forums were scrubbed clean of any mention of the incident. Hannah was summoned to the principal's office and pressured to reveal the father's identity. She remained stubbornly silent, protecting her true love. But Lucas's flamboyant displays of affection had made him an easy target. However, without Hannah's cooperation, and given his family's generous donations to the school, there was little they could do to punish him. In the end, to protect its reputation, the school expelled Hannah. I received the news while enjoying afternoon tea with my colleagues. Listening to her heartbroken sobs on the phone, I rolled my eyes internally, then softened my voice, offering words of comfort. "Hannah, don't cry. Calm down. I'll come home as soon as I'm finished here." I hung up, returning to my tea and conversation, a serene smile plastered on my face. Chapter 8. After her expulsion, Hannah became a fixture outside the school gates, desperately trying to intercept Lucas. He, in turn, avoided her like the plague, refusing to give her even a moment of his time. She had protected him, refusing to name him as the father even as she faced expulsion. Now, discarded and humiliated, facing the whispers and stares of her peers, overwhelmed by the sudden upheaval and the hormonal surges of pregnancy, Hannah finally snapped. She stood outside the school, loudly proclaiming Lucas as the father of her child. The girl who had remained silent to protect her love now, in her desperation, became her own worst enemy. She wanted me to fight for her, to demand justice. But I had no desire to be dragged into this mess. When an opportunity arose for a 5-month overseas assignment, I jumped at it, gladly escaping the drama. Respecting other people's destinies, not interfering in their decisions, is a profound truth. Unsatisfied with her efforts at the school, Hannah escalated her campaign. She descended upon Mitchell Corp headquarters, creating a scene, accusing the young heir of taking advantage of a vulnerable orphan, impregnating her and then abandoning her. The spectacle drew a crowd, and soon, videos of her outburst were circulating online, igniting a firestorm of controversy. The narrative of a wealthy playboy preying on an innocent girl captivated the public, and rival companies seized the opportunity to fan the flames, further damaging the Mitchell family's reputation and impacting their stock value. The Mitchell family, realizing the potential for further damage, invited Hannah to their home for a private meeting. They offered her a substantial sum of money to retract her accusations and terminate the pregnancy. But Hannah, having lost everything, was no longer interested in mere financial compensation. She wanted Lucas, she wanted marriage, she wanted to be a Mitchell. She threatened to press charges against Lucas for statutory rape, to keep the baby and force them to pay child support, to parade the child in front of them constantly, reminding everyone of Lucas's indiscretion. After a period of tense negotiations, the Mitchell family yielded. They agreed to let Hannah marry Lucas, orchestrating a lavish engagement ceremony, assuring the public that a wedding would follow as soon as they reached legal age. Hannah and Lucas, now a picture of reconciliation, appeared before the press, claiming the incident at Mitchell Corp had been a simple lover's quarrel. The narrative shifted. The public, ever fickle, was now captivated by the romantic gesture of the young heir proposing to his distraught girlfriend. The criticism directed at the Mitchell family evaporated, replaced by a wave of public approval, celebrating their fairy tale romance. Hannah, now surrounded by bodyguards and showered with attention, reveled in her newfound fame. She called me repeatedly, bragging about her luxurious life, the constant pampering, the deference she received. I listened patiently, scrolling through the online gossip about her, the growing number of negative comments she seemed oblivious to. 4 months of being treated like a princess had blinded her, convinced her that her position as a future Mitchell was secure. Perhaps sensing my lack of enthusiasm, she eventually ended the call. I walked to the dining table, picked up my coffee, and stood by the window, gazing at the glittering cityscape. Generations of ambition and hard work had built this world of power and privilege. And Hannah, a mere pawn, dared to challenge the mighty Mitchell family. A small smile played on my lips. The game was far from over. If the Mitchell family initially thought they could placate Hannah with money, they were now determined to make her pay. And what better way to destroy someone than to elevate them to dizzying heights, only to let them crash and burn? Hannah, blissfully unaware of the impending doom, continued to live her dream, flaunting her newfound wealth on social media. Her posts were a constant stream of luxury cars, mansions, jewelry, and designer clothes. Hubby dearest surprised me with another sports car. So annoying, followed by, thank you, Mom and Dad, for the new penthouse. You shouldn't have. The comments section overflowed with envy and adoration. It was New Year's Eve. Hannah was 5 months pregnant. Back from my extended business trip, I sat in my modest apartment, scrolling through Hannah's social media feed. She had posted pictures from her 18th birthday celebration, radiating happiness, her face noticeably fuller. While pampering Hannah, the Mitchell family had been meticulously crafting her public image, feeding the media a steady stream of negative stories. They painted her as vain, volatile, manipulative, and unstable. The video of her outburst at Mitchell Corp headquarters was recontextualized, presented as a tantrum thrown because Lucas had refused her demands for an immediate marriage, prioritizing his studies. They fabricated stories of her erratic behavior, her violent outbursts, her manipulative threats of self-harm, forcing the compassionate Mitchell family to acquiesce to her every whim. The narrative transformed her from a wronged innocent into a mentally unstable, emotionally volatile woman. The comments section, once filled with adoring fans, now reflected this carefully orchestrated shift in public opinion. The tide had turned. I knew something was off about her when I saw that video, one comment read. I heard she's terrible to the staff, another chimed in. From campus to marriage? She got expelled. What a joke. About the staff mistreatment, I can confirm. I worked for the Mitchells for years. Last month, she fired me because the bedsheets weren't her lucky color. She went ballistic. Even Mr. Lucas couldn't calm her down. She's terrifying. I must have done something terrible in a past life to deserve that. I went to school with her. She has rage issues. She threatened suicide to force Mr. Lucas to date her. He only agreed because he was afraid of what she might do. It was a huge scandal at the time. She's so entitled. The Mitchells are too kind, letting themselves be manipulated like this. Chapter 9. After Christmas, I saw another news story about Hannah. She had slipped on a wet spot on the stairs, fallen, and suffered a miscarriage. She was rushed to the hospital, but the baby couldn't be saved. She was in critical condition, undergoing emergency surgery. The Mitchell family, sparing no expense, had flown in the best doctors in the city to treat her. She survived, but with the devastating news that she would never be able to have children. When Hannah regained consciousness, she raved about the housekeeper deliberately leaving the stairs wet, and the other housekeepers ignoring her cries for help as she lay injured, leaving her to suffer until she lost consciousness. The Mitchell family, however, spun a different tale. They claimed Hannah, distraught over the loss of her child, was suffering from hallucinations and delusions. They insisted the housekeepers had been out shopping with Lucas's mother, and the sole remaining housekeeper, having been previously reprimanded by Hannah and sent to weed the garden, had been unaware of the accident. The public, already primed to believe the worst about Hannah, readily accepted the Mitchell family's version of events. Despite Hannah's increasingly erratic behavior, attributed to the trauma of losing her child, the Mitchell family continued to publicly acknowledge her as their future daughter-in-law, while simultaneously leaking stories of her unstable outbursts directed at Lucas. They carefully cultivated the image of a relationship falling apart, culminating in Lucas's tearful social media announcement, "Thank you all for your support and well wishes. The loss of our child has been devastating. Hannah and we've reached the end of our journey." He trailed off, his face buried in his hands, leaving the public to assume that Hannah was somehow to blame for the failed relationship. The internet, predictably, sided with Lucas. Poor Mr. Lucas. He deserved so much better than that crazy woman. "Don't cry, Mr. Lucas. She's not worth it. I feel like Lucas still loves her. Maybe he should try again?" "No way. I sympathize with her loss, but her constant outbursts would drive anyone insane. Mr. Lucas needs to move on. He deserves better. Good riddance. I'm not saying I told you so, but I never liked her. She always seemed off." Reading the comments, I couldn't help but notice how easily public opinion swayed in favor of the man. But it no longer mattered to me. My overseas assignment had been a resounding success. I had been promoted to department manager and was celebrating with my colleagues at a 5-star restaurant. My life was finally moving in the right direction. Chapter 10. Hannah was cast out of the Mitchell family, discarded now that she no longer held any leverage. She had nowhere to go. I was startled to find her huddled on my doorstep after work, a shadow of her former self. She tried to stand when she saw me, but her legs, cramped from squatting, gave way, sending her sprawling onto the ground. It took all my self-control, remembering the darkest moments of my past life, to suppress a laugh. "Sister," she sobbed, clutching at my pants leg, "Lucas, that bastard, his whole family, they used me. I've lost everything." Fighting back my disgust, I helped her inside and offered her a glass of water. Just as I was trying to figure out what to do with her, my work phone rang. There was a problem with a project, and I needed to return to the office immediately. Grabbing my keys, I hurried out, calling over my shoulder, "There's food in the fridge." I returned after 10, exhausted from a long night of troubleshooting. Hannah had prepared a meal. "Sister, come wash your hands and eat," she said. I sat at the table, hesitant to eat. Hannah, however, began eating without hesitation. I finally picked up my chopsticks, taking a few small bites. "You're working so hard," Hannah said, a bitter smile on her face. "Even with everything that's happened to me, you still prioritize work." "Work is important," I replied, too tired to engage. "I just wanted to be with Lucas," she continued, her voice filled with resentment. "Why did they do this to me? I can't take the college entrance exam, I've lost my baby, everyone online calls me crazy, my life is ruined." I looked at her, frail and sickly, a stark contrast to the successful future she had in my previous life. After the abortion, she had excelled in her studies, gaining admission to a prestigious university, and landing a promising job at a Fortune 500 company. But none of that had filled the void within her. The news of Lucas's marriage had triggered a descent into madness, culminating in her attempt to poison me. "Hannah," I interrupted her self-pitying monologue, "you're 18. You're an adult. You need to think for yourself. If Lucas loved you, would he have gotten you pregnant right before the most important exam of your life? If the Mitchell family truly wanted you as their daughter-in-law, wouldn't they have agreed to the marriage from the start? It's obvious. Stop deluding yourself." Hannah paused, raising her glass with a wry smile. I picked up my own glass, clinked it against hers, and took a sip. Her expression turned dark. "Why didn't you take me to get an abortion?" she asked, her voice laced with venom. "Why did you let me keep the baby? Are you happy that I couldn't take the exam? Are you happy that everyone hates me?" Her voice rose to a shriek. "Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you warn me? I hate you. I hate you. Your life is perfect, and mine is ruined. Why? Why?" I watched her, impassive, letting her rage wash over me. Helping her would have been wrong, not helping her was wrong. She would always find someone to blame, casting herself as the eternal victim. She was a selfish, manipulative parasite. A flicker of confusion crossed her face as she noticed my lack of reaction. "What's wrong?" I asked, a sneer playing on my lips. "Surprised I'm not convulsing?" I picked up the glass I had placed behind me earlier, the one she hadn't seen me switch with my own. She had actually thought she could outsmart me. After what she had done in my past life, I had been prepared. My apartment was wired with hidden cameras. While I was at work, I had watched her taint my drink, and I had stopped at a convenience store on my way home to buy a replacement. Sirens wailed in the distance. Disbelief flooded Hannah's face. "I sent the footage to the police before I even walked in," I said, holding up my phone, displaying the call log. "They have you on camera, clear as day, poisoning my drink." I smiled, a wave of satisfaction washing over me. I almost had to thank her. This was the perfect revenge. She had thrown away a bright future in my past life. Now, she would experience a fate far worse. Today marks the beginning of Hannah's second year in prison. The past year has been incredibly successful for me. My team has consistently delivered exceptional results, earning praise from the CEO and leading to 2 promotions. I'm now financially secure enough to retire comfortably. I've decided to work a few more years and then embark on a journey around the world. In my past life, Hannah's poison robbed me of the chance to experience the world. This time, I'm determined to make up for lost time.